Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Well, I think it's very interesting that we know from historical records that cannabis has been used for literally thousands of years, and nobody has ever reported any bad effects from the use of it.
Yeah.
And when you compare that to tobacco or to alcohol, there's absolutely no comparison between tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. There's just absolutely none whatsoever. And the statement that marijuana is a gateway drug to heroin or cocaine or whatever, this was verbally thrashed by the Institute of Medicine that said there was no evidence whatsoever that this was the case. So I think the main thing that we're doing is supporting General McCafferty and a whole bunch of DEA agents who are making very high salaries and don't want to give up the game, as you might say. So the people that are making money on the marijuana issue are the DEA agents. So I guess the federal prisons, the guards in the prisons are probably also recipients of a lot of money from the marijuana business. So
Exactly.
It's really a strange, absolutely bizarre situation that this has gone on, and I can't understand why some of these politicians in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere can't see this or understand it or whatever the right word is. I don't understand it.
I was a battalion scout and point man, and any of you guys are veterans, you know what the hell a point man means. The life expectancy is about 30 minutes or so, something like that. And I was in a war history writing class with about 10 Vietnam guys, and I told them that I was a point man and scout. They says, "Oh no, you weren't." And I says, "God damn it, yes I was." And they said, "Nah, you weren't. If you were, you'd be dead." So here I am, mean as hell, and so forth. How many of you read the story in the Oregonian last week about the DEA trying to get hold of your patient's charts? How many of you raise your hands? You read that? Well, let me tell you, the DEA skunks and the local cops are all going crazy because you bastards have permits to use marijuana. When the board took away my license in November 3 years ago, I was really disgusted with this because they thought that they were punishing me. They were not punishing me, they were punishing my 4,000 patients. And I get the idea that they were trying to stop the medical marijuana program.
Marijuana is the best drug we have found so far for the treatment of PTSD. And within the last month, I just wrote an article that marijuana prevents PTSD suicides. And I got about 1,000 comments on it from all over the country.
Well, you know, I was in the military, but I didn't see combat. But I do know, as a marijuana user, that when I smoke marijuana, I don't have dreams.
Yeah.
And when I quit using marijuana after a couple of days, I start to have some very vivid dreams.
Yeah.
So obviously, the use of marijuana will help.
That is one of the worst symptoms of PTSD, and you probably wouldn't imagine what the second most important symptom is.
What's that?
Not being able to talk about what was your worst experience. Tell me about your worst experience. Bam! Just like
so, did you feel that way after World War II? I know you went through a lot of very traumatic experiences in fighting your way into Germany and meeting up with the Russians there.
My first day, I was committed to combat. I got in an artillery barrage that just blew the hell out of this little town where I was, and the next day they hit me with a mortar barrage. And when we crossed the Rhine River, I got strafed by German planes. I got strafed by American planes. We lost 150 men in less than an hour.
Out of how many? 150
out of our battalion.
And a battalion is what, about
1,000.
About 1,000. So 150 out of 1,000. That's a pretty heavy attrition rate. 15% in an hour.
We had my battalion, my division, had the worst casualties crossing the Rhine River.
A well-known and controversial doctor who helped legalize medical marijuana in Oregon is in hospice care in Happy Valley.
Dr. Philip Levesque just celebrated his 92nd birthday. Amy Frazier met with him today to talk about his life's work, which cost him his license to practice medicine. Amy?
Well, when it comes to marijuana and the medical use of marijuana, Dr. Levesque tells me people are finally catching up to what he's been advocating for years. And he says that's something he's proud of.
Pretty good for a Hood River farm boy.
When asked how he wants to be remembered, Dr. Phil Levesque is quick with an answer.
Pot Doc.
Pot Doc is just one of his nicknames. In the 90s, he was also dubbed
the most dangerous man in Oregon.
92 years old last Sunday.
It feels like 91, only a little older.
Dr. Levesque reflects on his life.
Well, I didn't expect to live through World War II. So every day since May 7th, 1945 has been a gift.
Friends say he has dedicated his life to helping others, even in the face of controversy.
And I have been studying the medical use of marijuana since 1950, and I am very proud of the fact that I essentially introduced medical marijuana to the state of Oregon.
With a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology, he helped legalize marijuana for medical use in Oregon, a law that went into effect in 1999. At the time, he granted thousands of medical marijuana cards, which caught the attention of the medical board. In 2004, his medical license was revoked, ending his career as a doctor.
Was it worth it to you?
Hell yes. If I hadn't done this, nobody else would have. You bet. You bet.
In November, 56% of Oregon voters voted to legalize the recreational use of marijuana, a law that takes effect in July.
Do you feel like people are finally catching up with you?
Heck yes. 10 years ago, it was poison and very addicting.
As the marijuana movement continues, Dr. Levesque is proud of his contributions.
What are you most proud of?
I think survive until I was 92, I think. Something like what?
Dr. Levesque has been battling multiple illnesses, including cancer. He says his 92nd birthday Sunday was wonderful, surrounded by family and friends. Reporting live in the newsroom, Amy Frazier, KOIN 6 News.
And he always has that great sense of humor.
Mr. Henry Ford in 1941 with Popular Mechanics magazine showing off his car made from hemp.
Well, come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free. Some men are born to lead, some men have destiny, some men plant the seed, and some men set it free.
Here we had 92,000 cars a day, thousands of people parking behind the FBI building, and they arrested us and they said, you cannot do this. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you a fine and go on probation. So I did 15 days in prison rather than give him a $5 fine.
Wow, you know, that's kind of like telling Jesus you can't practice on Sunday.
It was a fine line. So come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free.
Jack here. And Ed Adair.
Well, hi, guys.
They must be on the hemp tour. Are you on the hemp tour?
One man said we must hear. One man's voice was clear. One man heard the call. His vision speaks for all.
The #1 plant for paper, fiber, and fuel from the natural cycle had been outlawed, that somehow the synthetic cycle had won, when the #1 thing in the natural cycle could outproduce it and completely clean up the atmosphere. So my partner, Captain Ed, who had become my partner in 1973 and doing the politics of this, said, we have to teach everybody in the world. So we went around and told everybody. Yeah. But it was a slow process.
So come open your eyes with me and come see what you can see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. Come open your eyes with me. It's time for you to see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Greetings from Northeast Portland and from the Capitol and from Salem. Listen, I'm not going to talk long. I know you all have been here for a long day already. I just wanted to update you on what's going on in Salem right now. Now, as you probably know, the passage of 91 was just the beginning of a process. Laws don't spell out all the procedures required to make them work, and some of that's being hammered out by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, as well as some of it in the legislature. In fact, yesterday, the OLCC put together a group of committees that are going to look at rules and licensing and quality and financing and extracts and infused items and growers. They're going to look at all those different issues. But I want to tell you, I'm not going to talk about those. I know that I was asked to speak because of a bill I introduced in the beginning of to start the process of cleaning up some of the effects of the so-called war on drugs. Unfortunately, that bill, 3372, probably isn't going to make it through the process this time. Fortunately, another bill will. Okay? It won't do everything, I'd hope, but as Mick Jagger would have been talking about at the legislative process, he said you can't always get what you want. So what are we trying to do? Well, it's important to recognize the extreme criminalization of certain marijuana-related activities has done more harm to our communities than the drug itself ever could. Combined with Measure 11, it put a lot of people behind bars and gave a lot of people felony records for actions that will not be criminal in the future. A stint in prison is not the end of one's so-called debt to society. A felony record can follow you for the rest of your life, closing doors to housing and employment, disrupting families and dragging the whole community down. We should have learned that from the experience of alcohol prohibition in the 1920s and early 30s, but we had to run the experiment again, it seems. And now as we come to our senses and create a system in which cannabis is legal but regulated in the future, we also need to do something about the harm that's been done by the prohibition in the past. And that's why I introduced a bill to create a path to the expungement of records of nonviolent marijuana-related records. And the reduction of sentences for similar offenses for people who are still in custody or under supervision. This is a high priority for me to do something about this, because while I won't deny that crime affects our community, and I won't deny that incarceration sometimes is an appropriate response to criminal acts, I also believe that it has been used too often where it makes no sense at all, creating criminals out of people who are doing no harm. We need to fix that for the future and also reach back and fix what has happened in the past. Now, as I said, 3372 is not going to make it, but details matter a lot in the legislative process, and we just couldn't work out through the details in the time that we had. I understand, however, that there will be another bill coming through the committee on implementing the Senate and House Committee on implementing Measure 91. In the Capitol, that's called the Joint Committee on Marijuana, just so that you know. Yes, it's a joke, and everyone seems to like it. Well, except for some of the folks here. I urge you to use the online Oregon Legislative Information System, OLIS. Look that up, O-L-I-S, to keep informed about what the committee is doing. And I hope you'll pay more attention to this, to more than this one issue, because I want you to make this issue your gateway issue for more involvement in our policy-making process. Our system works better when people watch and take part. and that means you. And I want to also just thank you for coming out and being so active in the campaign last year, and stay active. We need to have you to continue to listen to what's going on, to watch, to talk with everyone. Know who your legislators are. Do you know who your legislators are? How many of you know who your legislators are? All right, if you don't, you need to look it up and find out who that is and go and talk with them. Let them know that you're out there, let them know that you're watching and that you want to have some things changed. As I said, I don't think my particular bill is going to make it through, but I believe we will get a bill that'll come through in some form that'll work, that'll certainly make things a little better for the folks who have been incarcerated, who have records, and who are presently incarcerated. Maybe we'll get some changes, and that'll only become because you decide to work for it. So thank you very much. Take care.
Just feel so privileged and proud to be here with all of you today. It's really great. My name is Kimberly McCullough. I'm the Legislative Director with the ACLU of Oregon. I want to tell you a little bit about the ACLU before I get into everything else, just so you know, because not everybody does. ACLU has been around for over 100 years. We've been on the front lines of pretty much every civil rights and civil liberties issue in the country. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We work on free speech, racial justice, prisoners' rights, human rights, humane police practices, privacy, religious liberty, reproductive rights, LGBT rights, immigrant rights, and much, much more. We believe these rights are fundamental to a free society, and that's why we fight every day across the country in the courts and in the legislatures, and also through public education. As I'm sure you all agree, the war on marijuana is a failure. It has needlessly ensnared hundreds of thousands of people in the criminal justice system at a tremendous cost. More than half of all drug-related offenses in the state of Oregon are for marijuana. Over the last decade, Oregon police have arrested and cited more than 95,000 Oregonians for marijuana possession. That's the equivalent of arresting or citing every single person in the entire city of Hillsborough. In 2010, we spent over $50 million enforcing marijuana laws. What's more, the war on marijuana has been enforced along color lines. Even though black and white Oregonians use marijuana at about the same rate, black Oregonians are roughly 2 times more likely to be cited or arrested for marijuana offenses. And some areas of Oregon are actually even worse than that. In Lane County, it's 3.5 times more likely for doing the same thing at the same rate as everybody else. Last November, Oregon voters said enough is enough. Our money and resources should be spent on measures that actually keep our communities safe, like investigating serious crimes and reinvesting in public health programs, including drug treatment. Rather than wasting time and money clogging our courts and jails and destroying lives and families, the people of Oregon voted to legalize and regulate marijuana. At the same time, what the voters absolutely did not say is, let's throw medical marijuana users under the bus. People who are sick need access to their medication. Let me say that again. People who are sick need access to their medication. The ACLU was right there with you fighting for the medical marijuana program, and we will continue to fight to protect it. The voters also did not say endanger our privacy and over-regulate marijuana. Yet some of the proposals that have been made in the Oregon legislature this session would do just that if enacted into law. As the legislative director for the ACLU, I'm down in the Capitol every day. I've been fighting very, very hard to ensure the privacy of our medical patients, the privacy of our recreational users, and to make sure that these new regulations don't just simply create another method of criminalizing marijuana use. I'm also absolutely dedicated to work with Representative Frederick and anybody else who wants to get involved to expunge all nonviolent marijuana-related convictions from Oregon residents. It makes absolutely no sense to legalize marijuana and not clear the records of people with marijuana offenses. No Oregonian should be serving time in prison for marijuana, and no Oregonian should have to suffer the collateral consequences of having a conviction for marijuana for one more day. I want to tell you now unequivocally, your voice is extremely important, and it's very powerful in Salem. When I'm down in the Capitol, I hear legislators regularly talk about the communications that they get from the people of Oregon. It actually does make a difference when you sit down and write a letter, particularly when you write it in your own words. So please look up your legislators, look them up online, email them, tell them what you think. Tell them to enact fair and safe guidelines for Measure 91 and hold them accountable. Tell them to honor the will of the voters who said it was time for a new approach to marijuana, to honor the privacy of Oregonians who use marijuana, to expunge marijuana convictions, and to protect the medical program. I have to do this. I want to encourage you to support the ACLU. We need your support. Membership is as little as $5 for students. It's really easy to do. Just look us up online, ACLU of Oregon. That helps make our voice stronger. We will continue to fight this fight because we believe the criminal justice system is broken. We want to end not just the war on marijuana, but the war on drugs more generally. The drug war has failed to improve public safety and health. It's placed an unprecedented number of people behind bars, and it's severely eroded our constitutional rights. All that search and seizure law, all of those ways that the government invades our privacy, so much of that has been done in the name of fighting the war on drugs instead of actually helping the American people. So together, I believe we can end the drug war. We can reverse the tide of mass incarceration and protect our constitutional rights. Thank you.
A study out today found a new treatment for epilepsy is showing great promise. It uses an extract of marijuana. Here's Dr. John LaPook.
You're going to go to school.
From age 1, Hank Kovach suffered from severe epilepsy that could not be controlled with medicine. His mother, Megan, says in one day he could have more than 25 seizures.
I thought he was playing in the other room. He was not playing in the other room. He was convulsing, turning blue, and that's when I thought I lost him.
He's been such a good boy getting them all hooked up.
Last summer, she eagerly enrolled her son in a small trial designed to see if medical marijuana could help. Twice a day, Hank receives a marijuana liquid extract called Epidiolex. The medicine does not contain THC, the ingredient that can cause euphoria, anxiety, and paranoia. Megan says the change has been dramatic.
We instantly saw results. He was smiling again. We noticed the decrease in seizures. He was able to transition. And at this point, he was finally able to gain cognitive skills.
137 children and young adults, average age 11, were given the drug. After 12 weeks, parents reported the number of seizures declined 45 to 50%. Dr. Linda Locks of Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago is one of the researchers.
Some of the kids clearly became more verbal, better coordination. I had one child who started walking while they were using the medications.
Where's Harold the helicopter?
Hank's epilepsy was so severe, at age 7, he still cannot speak. But he's able to attend school and has not had a seizure in months.
My goal for him is to hear his voice, to hear him talk. We just want him to be happy.
It's been known since the early 70s that the active ingredient Hank received, called cannabidiol, can block seizures in animals. But how it works is unclear. What is clear, Scott, that much more research is needed, especially placebo-controlled trials.
Promising news. John, thanks for that.
As long as people are just being locked up for cannabis, then we've got to change those laws, and we've got to restore hemp for energy, folks. That's the real key here. The whole reason marijuana was prohibited was to stop this, to stop hemp fuel being used. Now this is hemp seed oil with a piece of hemp twine here. This is next week's wick right here. And you can burn this in any diesel engine with no conversion to the engine today. You can pour that right into your diesel engine and turn the key and drive. And that's the reason it was made illegal. It's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, crony, capitalist, ruling class that have brought us hemp and cannabis prohibition.
Marijuana becoming legal in Oregon, but what does that mean for drug testing in the workplace?
And what about out-of-state companies where marijuana is still illegal and they have employees in Oregon? Can they require drug tests? Tim Becker spent the day looking into those questions.
Well, short answer, companies must require drug tests if they do receive federal funding or are subject to federal testing for safety. Things like airlines and the Department of Public Safety. Still, the legalization of weed makes drug testing a topic with a sizable gray area. Now, a lawyer I spoke to tells me it boils down to why it is being done in the first place. Is it to prove someone's impaired on the job or simply to find out if an employee has used marijuana at all at some point in the past, even though it's not affecting their job performance?
Moving forward, we are still going to be in an environment where private employers, for the most part, can test people for whatever drugs they want to and can take more or less whatever actions they want against those employees.
Attorney Matt Goldberg tells me all signs now point to it still being okay in Oregon, an at-will employment state, to fire employees who've tested positive for marijuana in their system, even though they're not breaking any law, and that test is not precise enough to show impairment.
Again, if you're at will and you can be fired just because the employer decides that it doesn't like the way things are working out with you, well, then they're going to be able to fire you for testing positive for marijuana, or they could fire you for testing positive for alcohol.
He thinks legalization won't change that, even if and when it happens at a national level. What is bound to change, though, is how employers define their drug policies. They'll have to be well documented and well communicated. Some will probably update their drug testing policy to exclude marijuana. But companies who retain policy against marijuana use can back their choice to fire someone who failed a drug test with federal law that still defines marijuana as illegal.
An employer who's based out of state that has employees in a jurisdiction like Oregon where it will soon be legal, or Washington where it's already legal, that they will still be able to, generally speaking, apply their same testing regime that they originated under the law of some other state where it's not legal.
Okay, so what fuels the biggest debate is the fact that marijuana can stay in the system for quite a while after the impairment has long since worn off. And employers, though, if they want to, can always fall back on that federal law if they decide to terminate someone for testing positive.
I thought that was really good information to a very specific question that I think these questions like this are just going to keep coming up as we move forward.
Right,
yeah.
They'll keep coming up, and each one will be taken on a case-by-case basis, will be argued by attorneys either way, and could come out either way in the end.
Okay, Tim, thanks for looking into.
A Garden City mother was in court today trying to regain custody of her 11-year-old son nearly a month after police say they found more than a pound of marijuana in her home. She says she's a medical marijuana activist and her son was never in danger. But the fact remains the drug is illegal in Kansas. This morning there was a lot of support for the mother outside her court hearing. KSN's Lindsay Cobb spoke with the mom new at 5.
I regret nothing.
Shauna Banda says she's used cannabis oil since 2009 to treat her Crohn's disease. The mother swears by the medical benefits of the drug, and Monday, nearly 50 people came out to rally for her and support medical marijuana.
Cannabis is the most non-toxic substance on the planet. My home was much more dangerous with pharmaceuticals prescribed to me from doctors.
But her fight as a proponent of legal medical marijuana took a turn when her son talked about marijuana while at school.
We asked for consent to search to go in and just to make sure it was a safe environment and make sure there was nothing illegal. She denied that consent.
Police say a search warrant led to more than a pound of marijuana in the home, along with drug paraphernalia. The boy was put in DCF protective custody. Banda insists she never put her 11-year-old son in danger.
Because she was given a gag order, we still don't know if Banda will lose custody of her son. But the Garden City Police Department tells me that after Monday's hearing, the boy remains in protective care.
DCF says about 19% of home removals are because of drug use. And while loss of custody is up to the judge, they work to reconnect families. But Banda says she'll continue fighting for both her son and medical drug use.
I feel like I've been able to be a better mother now, and I have a better quality of life, and I shouldn't have my child taken away because his mother can actually do things with him now. It's wrong.
In Garden City, Lindsay Cobb, KSN News.
We should note that Banda has not yet been charged with a crime. That's up to the county attorney.
Thank you for joining us today. On our program, we are blessed to have the distinguished individual, Dr. Todd Mikaria, come onto our show and share some interesting viewpoints and some successes that they've had in the Bay Area and California. For those of you who are not acquainted with this gentleman, he has a very impressive background. He is a psychiatrist in private practice in Oakland and Berkeley. He is a gentleman who introduced the first methadone maintenance program in Alameda County.
That's right.
And he's also a member of the California Medical Association. He's certified by the American Society of Addiction Medicine, and the California Society of Addiction Medicine is a qualified medical review officer, right?
That's right.
Kind of blew that. He's also the co-author of a very impressive landmark bill that has happened in San Francisco called Proposition P. This man's background goes beyond that, but for now, that basically covers the things that we're going to be approaching. Now, Proposition P, a lot of people have become aware of that through the press and through media coverage, and I know people becoming aware of your background recognizes that you have a lot going for you intellectually, and so that when you make a comment that we should pay attention to hemp as a medical resource for the curing of pain and relieving of pain and other diseases, it comes with a lot of impact.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. One of the problems that we had, well, we've been having problems for many years of getting access to medicinal cannabis. And once upon a time, I was in charge of marijuana research for the National Institute of Mental Health in Chevy Chase. This is back in 1967, but since that time, there's been a minimal amount of progress in getting cannabis available for medicinal use. Only recently has there been some compassionate access, and only recently have there been some grudging admissions by the scientific and medical establishment that cannabis, in fact, had therapeutic efficacy.
Okay.
And I feel very bitter about this because I know it to be a cover-up, since before marijuana was taken away from availability by the 1937 Tax Act, medicinal cannabis also became unavailable, deleted from the 1941 formulary and pharmacopoeia.
Now, why did that go hand in hand like that?
Because it was part of this so-called send them a signal school of propaganda and disinformation that the police had to maintain in order to continue the fictionalized killer weed, or part of reefer madness. And so saying that cannabis had medical or medicinal utility would have run contrary to their fiction that they needed to maintain in order to continue credibility and not having people question why marijuana was in fact prohibited.
Now, that's the only plant substance drug, which is not really a drug, it's an herb, that's been treated like that. I mean, we have opium that's still available, et cetera, for medicinal purposes, et cetera, don't we? And other forms of...
That's right, even cocaine. But because of the several factors, the growing popularity and the promotion of synthetic drugs by the pharmaceutical manufacturers that started in the 1890s and went on through the 1900s and has escalated ever since with new and better, allegedly, synthetic substances. No money could be made from any patents, and they weren't interested in promoting the use of cannabis. Although Eli Lilly and Park Davis maintained a farm for developing pharmaceutical strains and pharmaceutical strength plants up until 1937.
And then they're just now disregarding all of that past evidence until now you're bringing it to light?
Well, yes, and that's, well, it's very much like living, at least in the medical world, with the depiction of the Planet of the Apes and what happened to medicine after they wanted to get rid of all these human kinds of advances in technology, and they reverted to some form of medicine that resembled something that happened in the Middle Ages or worse.
Okay, well now, see, people are able to recognize that hemp can be made into paper, fiber, and fuel, but when it comes to the idea of it being medicine, outside of smoking it, as far as relaxing, taking care of stress, etc., it's hard for them to imagine in what areas hemp can actually be utilized for. Now, you say that it helps in AIDS, as an example?
Well, okay, back to this issue of censorship and it's being swept under the rug.
Okay.
And the importance of bringing this back to consciousness and bringing it back to the awareness of the medical community as far as a therapeutic agent. And that's why the text of the initiative or the proposition in San Francisco that I co-authored contained the term restore.
Could you take a moment and read it to our audience?
Yes.
I'd appreciate that.
Recommendation to amend the Health and Safety Code of California. 1. The people of the City and County of San Francisco recommend that the State of California and the California Medical Association restore hemp medical preparations to the list of available medicines in California. Licensed physicians shall not be penalized for or restricted from prescribing hemp preparations for medical purposes to any patient. Definition. The term hemp medical preparations means all products made from hemp, cannabis, or marijuana in all forms that are designed, intended, or used for human consumption for the treatment of any disease, the relief of pain, or for any healing purpose, including the relief of asthma, glaucoma, arthritis, anorexia, migraine, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, nausea, stress, for use as an antibiotic and antiemetic, or as any healing agent, or as an adjunct to any medical procedure for the treatment of cancer, HIV infection, or any other medical procedure or herbal treatment. Now that is a very broad definition of medicine or medical or medicinal applications.
Yes, it is.
But the definition of hemp medical preparations is well documented in previous things like the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, and that in fact all the definitions are in place ready to go for medicinal use of crude cannabis products to be restored.
Excellent.
To the formulary.
Excellent.
And so we're in this wonderful post-passage euphoria. Dennis Perrone, the spark plug behind this, has appointed me the medical coordinator for the Committee for Compassionate Use, his organization, to get this on the ballot, and then now we're trying to figure out what do we do now. All of a sudden we've become successes after all these many years having been failures and looked upon as outcasts, deviants, nuts, irresponsible, dope-smoking hippies, and other kinds of negative stereotypes that we've been stuck with, which is all part of the suppression campaign to keep cannabis, marijuana, or hemp illegal.
And see, a lot of that has to do with people of your stature being willing to come forth into the public light and make these statements, because, you know, you leave yourself wide open. I'm certain you realize that, for a variety of attacks, whether it be from government agencies or private industry.
Yes, because it's really part of a campaign to maintain these collective fictions in order to prop up these flawed policies that they need to attempt to discredit or tarnish or kill the messenger somehow, so as to not be made to confront the actual facts and deal on a level playing field with what is in fact happening.
When we come back, I'd like to be able to go a little bit farther as to how the next step, Proposition P.
Preparation P.
Preparation P helps take care of a pain. Yes, it does. Is going to be implemented in the direction that it's going to have to go before it becomes completely successful. We'll be right back after this. We're talking today with Dr. Todd Mecuria, and we are learning some of the benefits, of course, for the medical uses of the hemp plant, But now we also have some challenges against us still that we've got to overcome. You have encumbered the first leg of the journey. You've just the first battle, basically. You've got it legal in a city. But now I understand from talking to Dennis Perone and others, you still have to encumber the state laws and the federal laws. Now, how do you plan on getting this into the next phase?
I've already worked on attempting to surf on this event wave, and have taken a running start by contacting the California Medical Association with regard to the possible passage of this before it actually passed. Okay. And so I'm asking them to become involved with helping to implement the intent of the proposition, which specifies that the people of the city and county of San Francisco recommend that the state of California and the California Medical Association restore hemp preparations, etc.
How do you think that will be met?
With trepidation by the California Medical Association, but it's been put on a fast track to be reviewed by their scientific council. And I spoke with the president of the CMA, Dr. Howard Lang, who impresses me as a forthright, courageous person. But I don't know how he feels on the issue. He was vaguely aware of having seen it across his desk, but then passed it on to the appropriate staffers down at their headquarters office in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And they were aware that it had passed, but were not aware of how the California Medical Association was obliged to be involved. Okay. There isn't any kind of way we can force the CMA to be involved in taking a stand, yay or nay. But if they do support this, their options of activity are to publicize it amongst their physicians, and also start working in Sacramento for legislation to make this possible, and of course statewide.
Okay, now, is there a chance that a federal agent or a state agent would still take action in the city of San Francisco and begin arresting people when they are growing marijuana, hemp?
Well, this is always possible, but we have this unique situation in San Francisco where the district attorney has assured us that he will not prosecute any cases for 6 plants or less that are growing for medicinal purposes if the person demonstrates that they have medicinal intent or documentation.
Gatewood Galbraith once made the comment on a show of ours that if he were able to re-legalize hemp in Kentucky, all the tourists would come in, he could fill up all the hotels. When I spoke with Dennis Perone, he made comment that now that this has happened in the medical field, a variety of organizations from muscular cirrhosis, etc., are wanting to open up foundations and offices, etc., in the San Francisco, i.e. Bay Area. Do you foresee that happening? And if so, is that going to make the movement stronger? Or?
I hadn't thought of that eventuality necessarily, but I would welcome that, because it would, with what we have in mind, help everybody, including the sufferers that were in need. Because now that we have the de facto decriminalization, even though the state attorney general is a right-wing individual that will probably oppose this, and ironically, he was the opponent to the DA who lost the race for the state attorney general to him, so there won't be any love lost between them. Theoretically, the state attorney general could send state police and state narcotics agents to go and do this kind of enforcement, but it would be difficult and outside of his area of usual responsibilities.
So you don't see an attack like they had in Humboldt County?
Well, I think that in San Francisco, where you have an uncooperative local DA with the state laws, you have the mayor and the public health establishment on your side. And as soon as we get back to San Francisco, Dennis and I have a meeting with the head of the San Francisco Health Department, that we will start moving forward and making something happen de facto that would be politically suicidal to be punitive and to attempt to stop by either federal or state intervention. That theoretically they could, but to target people who are compassionately using cannabis this, especially in an election year, would not look too good with regard to Washington, the state of unreality inside the Beltway that doesn't really have any substantive health policy. And to do something negative like this would be, I would say, not good politics. But back to trying to implement the intent of this. We are going to be presenting to the the county health person a draft of a questionnaire and a form that we will have distributed by the health department and publicized by them to the physicians in San Francisco, that we are starting a research project to determine the impact of this in terms of the first way of accurately assessing actual hazards and benefits of cannabis products. That will involve visits by the users to their family physician, or if they don't have one, find one, because to get a prescription for using cannabis, they'd have to have a signature of a prescribing physician, because it mandates that we're not going to be punished for prescribing. And then, should the police come and investigate a growing situation in a window box or something of that nature, patio, that the person would furnish proof that this was for medicinal purposes, and they would be functionally sheltered and decriminalized for their compassionate access to cannabis. Now, as a quid pro quo, we ask that they give us certain facts with regard to their the use for what ailment, and we have all these conditions listed here, and this will be part of the form that we'll ask the patient to complete, and the physician also.
Now, I know one thing that the taxpayers from the Bay Area would be concerned about is when the Berlin Wall came down, all the people came rushing out, and there was an overflow into a new city and not enough to take care of. When this wall comes bursting down in San Francisco, you're going to have people from Miami, New York, everywhere coming into San Francisco and needing this medicine to relieve themselves from AIDS, glaucoma, et cetera, and there's going to be an enormous amount, it appears, of people seeking your help. How are you going to prepare to take care of that?
I think the San Francisco physicians can respond to that challenge, and that they can provide them with good medicine, and also with frankness with regard to their substance use patterns, and not have to be hypocritical or fearful that anything will be happening to them, so that they're not going to turn down the business. And we're talking about people publicizing to the medical community that this is what happened, and this is what the Public Health Department is doing to try to help implement it. One of the things we're going to ask for is some office space in the Public Health Department, but we'll pay for it. And we're then going to start soliciting contributions or money to implement this research project. Another thing that we're going to ask the Public Health Department to do is to monitor the purity, quality, and strength, and do chemical analyses on hemp specimens that will be submitted by users, because they would like to know about different issues of purity. For example, fungi and molds. This is really a critical issue for the AIDS patients, because those that have compromised immunologic systems and problems with recurrent pneumonia, to have sources of mold or fungi come in courtesy of the leaf would be not good for their health, probably. And so we have to study the level of occurrences of these kinds of contaminants, molds, fungi. Possibly somebody might have something in their soil they didn't know about that would get into there like a heavy metal, and that the essentially the health department's laboratory would be protecting the health of the citizens of San Francisco for drug purity with regard to cannabis, plus providing us a source of information for other phases of research, which will be structure-activity relationships and variety, strain, other kinds of botanical or species, kinds of differences, or growth techniques will also start coming online with regard to issues of what are good medicines, what are undesirable effects.
And we'll
also
start generating new research
Right.
and new approaches to problems.
That's right, and a population which will give us this information in exchange for being protected.
Sounds excellent.
And this is the kind of thing that I'm quite excited about. I think that we are sending the right signal to the Beltway back here.
And we need to do so still.
And I think that this kind of initiative will help demystify, because it will involve the medical community in learning what is real and what is hysteria, so that more legitimate information will come from this. And I'm asking to be appointed principal investigator for this research effort.
I'm sure
so
we'd
as
love
to
to do
coordinate
that.
it.
And we've also enjoyed having you on our show. We really have to go at this point, but we'd like to have you come back soon. Next time you get a chance to be on the show, would you please?
Certainly will.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for tuning into our program. We're doing what we can to bring in the information to you as quickly as we come across it. Until we're in touch again, keep happy, keep strong, keep wise.
This is, as you can see, Indian cannabis, a fluid extract of Indian cannabis from Wyeth and Brothers. Right next to it, it is a cannabis compound called Kill a Cough. It's a really neat bottle. It's if you like bottles, and I do. This one is a chloroform cannabis mixture, and it's called Kill a Cough as a cough medicine. Next to it, we have this. It also came in this. It's also Kirkcall's cough medicine. It has a little package here with instructions in Swedish, Bohemian, Spanish, Italian, French, and several other languages. So this is also cannabis and chloroform. Basically, that just knock you out, right, doctor? You take cannabis and chloroform, boom, you're knocked out. You won't be coughing. Then we have this one from Eli Lilly, a 1-pint bottle of fluid extract number 96. Cannabis. Eli Lilly had about 8 different cannabis preparations, several of them pure, some of them were fluid extract, powdered extract of hemp, which was basically hashish. Then we have this little package of hemp oil. We've taken it and lit this lamp to demonstrate the energy potential of cannabis, and then of course our hemp twine.
Give us this day our daily yeses. Yes to life. Yes to living. Yes to caring. Yes to giving. Yes to creating. Yes to thinking. Yes to clarity. Yes to balance. Yes to being. Yes to seeing. Give us this day our daily yeses. Chaos, confusions. Confusions, chaos. Despairs, desperations. Desperations, despairs. Programmed belief. Belief programmed. Manipulated minds. Minds manipulated. Behaviors, reactions. Reactions, behaviors. Fearful thinking. thinking fearful. Inside, outside, outside, inside. Thought altering, altering thought, diseasing perceptions, deceptions diseasing, forgetting medicine, medicine forgetting, clear thinking, thinking clear, coherent, coherence, coherency, coherent, prayers given, given prayers, realities created, created realities, see whatever, whatever sees, we do we, our daily yeses, give us this day our daily yeses, yes to yeses, yes to seeing, yes to being, yes to balance, yes to clarity, yes to thinking, yes to creating, yes to giving, yes to caring, yes to living, yes to life, yes to yeses. Give us this day our daily yeses.
So, Casper?
TimeForHemp.com. Tune in. Tell your friends about it. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Here's Mr. John Cornette. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.
We are many, we are strong, and so many be so wrong, giving in too many lies.